You're listening to Health Innovators, a podcast and video show about the leaders, influencers, and early adopters who are shaping the future of healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. Roxy Mooney. Welcome back to the show, Health Innovators. On today's episode, I'm sitting down with Robert Niichel, who is the CEO and founder for SmartTab. Welcome back to the show, Robert.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So for our audience, if you could just tell them a little bit about your background and what you've been innovating these days, that'll kind of set the tone for today's conversation.
Yeah, very nice. So my background is in the pharmaceutical space, historically directing projects that have been designed around drug delivery, time-release drug delivery, et cetera. About 10 years ago, moved out of that space, started a company, Nano Pharmaceutical Laboratories, with the idea to bring these high-tech types of pharmaceutical applications to the consumer healthcare, digital healthcare, and consumer healthcare space. From there, as that company grew, we started a new division called SmartTab. And that was brought online about 3 years ago with the idea of now adding in wireless drug technologies to cutting edge platforms. So today, that brings us to SmartTab, an oral ingestible capsule, which is a drug delivery platform.
Very, very exciting. Some very novel technology and solutions that you're bringing to the market.
Yeah, exactly. And, really what started as an idea a few years ago with one particular application for targeted drug delivery has expanded into a platform. Now we have different types of capsules that deliver different types of applications. They're all centered around a platform. So each capsule has a very similar type of electronic architecture inside. And then from there, the delivery applications do change. On the first one, we have completed preclinical animal studies already. That was last year, getting ready for our filings with the FDA. And then we have two more platforms that are coming online, heading into preclinical animal studies next month with our InjectTab, which will have the studies completed with insulin.
That was going to be my next question of where are you in the innovation process? So as we kind of think about what you're bringing to market, it is something that's very revolutionary, very, very much novel. What would you say are some of the differences in your strategies or the commercialization decisions that you're making versus maybe when in the past when you've maybe brought something to market that was more incremental?
Yeah, exactly. Good question. And really on this one, and this draws from my experience on other companies, building companies in the past, is really have it patient focused. So because of that, we hold focus groups. We bring in patients. Our last one, we had about 25 Crohn's disease patients, and really try to build these products that are very patient-centered. Sometimes companies will come up with good ideas and then hope that the market or the consumers will be there. This one, we're on the opposite end of that. We're looking at the consumers first or the patients first, see what is important to them. And then, talking about our digital hub here in Denver, Colorado, working with UC Health to see what they're looking at. They've been progressive with telemedicine. How do we perform the drug delivery through our smart capsule? How do we collect data, i.e. vital signs after the drug has been deployed? And then how do we analyze those data to make real-time decisions? So I think the biggest key to answer your question specifically is we're really completing a lot of market research, very patient-driven. And as you can imagine, this is much more complex in the healthcare industry. You have insurance involved, you have payers involved, you have very high-end individuals who deploy this technology through the hospitals. They're very highly trained, very specialized. So we're looking at that strategy, that platform first, versus a lot of consumer products. I mean, this isn't a consumer product, but nonetheless, you come up with something that's kind of cool. You sprinkle some money on it for marketing, and you're on your way. This one, we're being very strategic in obtaining what the market is after, what the patients are after. Now, the end goal with all this is better patient outcomes. So the patients have better drug delivery platforms and have better patient outcomes.
So what I think is so important, and I've talked about this a couple of times on the show, is a lot of brilliant innovators like yourself. You've got an idea that you want to bring to market, and a lot of times people kind of fall in love with that idea and stay really closed and make sure that all that R&D comes from within the company. So I really, really advocate for what you're saying. I call it co-creation, where you're co-creating with your target customers, and
Right.
not just doing that customer discovery at a particular moment in time, but on an ongoing basis, that it's part of the culture, it's part of the DNA of the company. It's not,
Right.
it's something that you just do, it's who you are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's been surprising with the patient focus groups, some of the learnings from those. It seems simple enough that, one of our platforms is to do away with the syringe and the needle and bring that to a capsule platform. So now instead of once a week, if you have to self-inject a syringe and a needle into your leg, now you take a capsule and that performs the injection into the stomach vascular matrix. How, that would affect people. And then really, just seeing what the desire is for that. And a lot of stories where people have to drive 50 miles, they have to go to a hospital, they have to have their injection completed because they can't do it by themselves. Maybe they have to have their roommate complete an injection, or their spouse, etc. And really discovering some of the non-visual cost, the drive time, the time in the hospital, so on and so forth. So they have been very eye-opening.
That it's just fantastic, and I hope that all of our audience is kind of taking heed to that. A lot of times when innovators are starting out, they might not think that they have the time or they have the money to invest in this type of customer discovery up front. And I'm always advocating that you can't afford to not do this up front. So it's great to know that you guys are on the right track.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll stay on that track as we move forward. And, more in the commercialization is really today, we're working through the clinical studies. The next step will be the FDA approvals, and then we go to market. And as we get closer to going to market, continue with focus groups, what resonates with the individuals, the patients, beyond just the product, but how do you deploy the technology? How do you interface this with an app on your phone? How does this platform then become driven with different software attributes? So those are important things also as we move to market.
Yeah. So I want to just, if you don't mind, kind of just talk about this co-creation or customer discovery with the patients as you've gone through that process. Have you come across any challenges with getting patients to participate and engaging them, especially, in this post-COVID climate that we're leading into? And maybe if you have, how have you worked through them?
Yeah, good point. So, the first thing is with the COVID, very limited on in-person meetings. Prior to COVID, we would have visitors to our facility. We are in a newer building, Catalyst Health. It's a mix of startup companies, mid-sized companies in the digital healthcare space. So we would have visitors come in, talk with them, show them what we were working on, what we're doing. COVID stopped all that. So then we had to migrate to these sessions. So the focus groups, the last couple that we've done, they're all online, right? So you have 30 people on your Zoom call, and that is effective. It does create a different type of dynamics. You don't really get to know the people as well, or have that, in-person interaction. So that it's been a challenge. I think sometimes it has allowed us to get people from different parts of the state, different parts of the country to participate. So that has been a benefit. So COVID-19 had its challenges as well as some positive things as well. We have been expanding the reach with, the focus groups, like I mentioned, outside of the state and more on a national level. We've been able to talk to some more international communities, what this would look like as well. Now, post-COVID, it's been interesting. Telemedicine has really increased. The use of Zoom calls has really increased. So I think those conversations now sometimes go better because you're actually seeing the person on video. You're actually getting a little bit more interaction with them. Pre-COVID, Zoom calls were not as popular. Now they're everywhere. They're every day. So, I'm kind of the eternal optimist and always look for the good things. And, kind of like I'm the glass is always full. It isn't even half full. It's all the way full. But so I
Like a
kind of look
typical
at
entrepreneur.
the COVID-19. If you looked for opportunities with that, I think we can come out of that better. And it's certainly with our focus groups, it has been a benefit.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A lot of times, those things that we thought were challenges turn into really incredible opportunities that can be game changing for our business. And I like what you're saying too. Really being able to go outside of your local market gives you kind of a different population, which is I'm sure you're going to be selling nationally, maybe even globally. So being able to broaden that sample population for that co-creation is so important because you could potentially learn something different from patients in the New England area versus more in the Colorado market. So that's great. Yeah. So one of the things that I find is so amazing about you guys is your investment in marketing and PR pre-launch. So I've worked with a lot of health innovators over the years, and many times I'm pushing and advocating and kind of presenting a case of how important it is to invest in those strategies early on. And you guys are doing it. So just kind of share about that journey. What was your motivation? Was it past experience? Is it someone on your team? A combination of things. What motivated you to make those investments early on?
Yeah, great question. So I would say there are two things. Number one, it's that what we are working on is really to an extent educating patients on a better platform, a better application. The second thing is that prior experience is that you need to get the word out on what we're working on. So in as much to an extent it's marketing, this is really a mission for us. We have had successful companies before. We're driven by really bringing a game-changing technology to the market. So when you think about that, most people in the United States today, if you would say in 3 years, 4 years, you will be taking a capsule instead of using a syringe and a needle.
Right.
They've never heard of it. It's a crazy idea. However, you can look at other industries that have started out and have moved pretty quickly to a new paradigm shift. And that's what we're working on. So part of that requires marketing. It requires what we're doing today. Being on the show, being on the podcast, being on, with the marketing to educate people that it's out here. So that not only has benefits to drive potential through our focus groups to focus on this patient-centered approach, but also, with working on strategic partnerships with pharma companies or strategic partnerships with medical instrument tech types of companies and raising capital, et cetera. So a lot of this is about educating. And when you're working on something as large as this, to where you look at a pharmacy today, it looks basically the same way it did 50, 60 years ago. So we're talking about going into a pharmacy and changing the way the medicine is deployed. So when you walk into a pharmacy, say 5, 10 years from now, virtually all capsules, tablets will have some type of a tracking mechanism, electronic delivery mechanism, et cetera. So, because of that, we need to get the word out and we need to provide education to patients as well as the marketing piece of it.
Yeah. Well, again, big kudos to you guys. There's another company that's in the similar space, right? In the digestible medicine, drug delivery market that I'm very familiar with. And, their perspective of their commercialization strategy was they were waiting all the way until they got FDA clearance, waiting till they had all the clinical evidence before they were investing any dollars in marketing. And I think it's a huge missed opportunity. And so, just like I said, kudos to you guys for making that investment and seeing that vision, because I think it's going to be a game changer, because you're right. It is a long haul with being able to educate the market around something that is so novel. And that way, when you're ready to go to market, it's already there.
Right.
Yeah. So let's just talk about podcasting. When I think about some of the objectives from a marketing and commercialization standpoint around pre-launch, I think of building an email list, building a social media presence, testing marketing messages, having early conversations with prospective customers. And these are all things that you can do through producing and hosting your own podcast show.
Mhm.
So when did you guys start your show, and how has that been beneficial to the company?
Yeah, exactly. Great point. So we started about a year and a half ago, and we've done it in different segments. So the first segment was to focus on healthcare in general, how that's changing. Then we have a second campaign where we talk more about the technology specifically, and then different types of podcasts that we've been guests on, where there's been talking about the deployment of the technology, commercialization, et cetera. So to answer your question, about a year and a half ago, we got started, and then it has really helped, like, again, back to this education, to where almost, if you look at these industries, to where people are like, oh, I've never heard of such a thing. You mean you can actually take an electronic capsule, swallow it, track data, injectables, multi-days, et cetera. And you can look at some of these industries that started before. And since I mentioned this a couple times, some examples, take things that are electronic, like the microwave oven. And when that started in the late 70s, nobody ever heard about it. And it very fast, people heard about it. They started using it. Now, 40, 50 years later, it's like every house, every place has a microwave oven. You can look at the cell phone industry. In the early 80s, nobody ever heard of cell phones. They were nowhere. And then all of a sudden, 1985 or so, they came out with the big Motorola bricks, if you remember those. And then, here we are 30 years later, and they are everywhere. And we truly believe, albeit a long haul, like you mentioned, that getting out there with the podcast, educating the people, and letting people know that this technology actually exists is key to what we're working on. So like we've talked about here, is like, get started early, get the word out. It's an opportunity to educate people about the technology, but more importantly, let people know that the technology actually exists.
Yeah. Hey, it's Dr. Roxy here with a quick break from the conversation. Are you trying to figure out what moves you need to make to survive and thrive in the new COVID economy? I want every health innovator to find their most viable and profitable pivot strategy, which is why I created the COVID Proof Your Business Pivot Kit. The Pivot Kit is a step-by-step framework that helps you find your best pivot strategy. It walks you through 6 categories you need to examine for a 360-degree view of your business. I call them the 6 critical pivot lenses. As you make your way through this comprehensive kit, you'll be armed with the tools, tips, and strategies you need to make sure you can pivot with speed without missing out on critical details and opportunities. Learn more at legacy-dna.com/kit. Content, PR, promotion, and as we talked about co-creation and customer discovery, what better way to do that with than consistently having interviews with your target audience on the show and create content while you're doing it. Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah. So what is on the future? In the future for SmartTab? What are some of the key milestones that you guys are focused on, both in the short term and long term?
Yeah, great question. So short term, we have an upcoming preclinical animal study using the InjectTab with insulin. That will be happening starting next month. That's a key milestone. Target Tab, we have preclinical studies completed. We will be bundling those data to submit to the FDA for a clearance. Medical device, you get a clearance, class 2 medical device. And then from there, we bundle that with a pharma prescription drug, and that would be a 505(b)(2). So kind of give you an idea of the timeline is that within the next 6-12 months, obtain the class 2 medical device clearance on 2 of our SmartTabs. And then we need to bundle those with prescription drugs, about 24 months. You have to do 1 human clinical study. Then the next milestone will be commercialization. So as we grow, one of the things we're working on right now is building out a mid-size, kind of a pilot mid-size manufacturing facility, so we can build the capsules at a measured rate, keep that internal, keep the controls tight there, and then commercialization within 36 months. So we're on a pretty short time frame to where in 3 years, if all goes well, you will see the first smart tabs in the market, in the pharmacies, for our patients to use.
It's very exciting. I mean, you're hard pressed these days to not have someone that you know in your circle that's taking some type of injection medication or that is non-compliant with their medication regimen, and you know how it's impacting their lives. And
Right.
so it'll be really exciting to when we have some of these innovations actually in use. So one of the things I think is really interesting is, you've been at this for what, 3 years?
Yes.
And then you're talking about another 36 months before you get to commercialization. And that takes money, right? Can't build a company for 5 or 6 years without having some type of funding. So talk to us about what this funding journey has been like for you.
Yeah, exactly. And this, draws on experience of building companies in the past and being successful, is that, you start out with individual investors. Some of those investors have been prior investors in prior companies. So individual investors, to date, we have a very clean balance sheet, no debt, no preferred stock, no liquidation preferences, and we continue to grow. We're starting now on our Series A capital raise. We were going to start on this a little bit earlier, but things were slowed with COVID-19. etc. So now we're embarking on that journey to raise additional capital for the growth ahead. So yes, we do need to raise capital. However, with that capital, it continues to, now we'll work through the clinical studies, build out this pilot manufacturing facility, launch activities, etc. So to date, I would say we've been very frugal with the dollars that we've raised. We know how to, present the company exactly where we're at, present a very solid management team, and also this idea that we're on a mission. We will see this through, and so people like myself, we've had other companies, we've been successful, but this is one that's a mission, and we're not going to, get 12 months here and say, we're out of money, we're not going to raise more capital, go do something else. This is a mission, and we will see this through to get these products to market. So with that, it gives people confidence as the investors to invest dollars and see the horizon of what we will be bringing to market.
So how is that journey maybe evolved before COVID, during COVID, and kind of now as we're, kind of the post-COVID economy or the post-COVID funding round? I hear a lot of mixed messages about money drying up and then money being a free-for-all and kind of every place in between.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really about the fit. This is more cutting edge technology, so we're not a real good fit for an investment firm that is looking to invest and have a very clean line of sight for an exit in 12 months.
Right. Yeah.
Ours is a little bit longer. We're probably 3, 4, 5 years out. Some people get scared off by the FDA process, but that's just the way it is. We've been through that before, and we'll migrate through this one successfully as well. There's plenty of money out there for the right ideas, and if it's the right fit. I think a lot of times with, you hear the money has dried up, that's probably because people are running into a situation to where it isn't a good fit. They don't have a good strategy. They are trying to build something and take it to market, but they have no idea of what the market is. We've talked through that already, being patient-centered. So the money is out there. It has to be, it has to be invested into good teams, good strategies, etc. So it is a process. And I think COVID-19, it certainly slowed things down. But now we're kind of moving out of COVID and things seem to be, speeding back up again. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, to your point, it's very different, I think, trying to raise funds for, they all have their challenges and their opportunities, but I think it's very different when you're raising money for something that's really never been done before or contributing to a new category.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so again, this is a mission for us. We will bring these things to market, but it is game changing. I mean, if you start looking at the numbers, 50 billion injections last year globally. I mean, imagine if you could have some of those people taking a capsule now for an injection instead of a syringe and needle. You're talking the ability to have, market valuations that are extremely large. You're talking about, revenue streams that are extremely large. This is a game changing technology that we're bringing to market. So, yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Some people may view the risk too high, the money return, et cetera, but it will work. We will bring these things to the market. And because of that, your returns will be very high. However, some people, it's too risky. The line of sight isn't quite there. The FDA scares some people off, like we talked about. But I think to your point, that is correct. If it's too new, if it's too unknown, people get scared away, and then they obviously don't enjoy the returns when it does come to market.
Well, and they're the ones that miss out, right? They weren't a good fit for you anyway. So it's nice that they can, self-select out, self-top out.
Right.
Yeah. So what are some of the most important commercialization decisions you think entrepreneurs need to make, especially bringing, something like a med device solution to market?
Yeah, that's a great point. So one of them that is near and dear to our heart is to keep the development, keep the early stage manufacturing in-house. Many times, and people will get sold on this very easily many times as a startup, is you need to contract manufacture out, bring in the experts. And many times those don't go very well because it isn't in-house. Maybe the people that are the contract manufacturers, they're not on the same mission path that you are. And, prior experience, we've seen those play out. So very important to us. And I would suggest that other entrepreneurs take a close look at this, is when you're developing something, certainly the more proprietary that it is, keep a very close eye on how it's being developed, how it's going to be manufactured, and then what those controls look like. Because many times you can spend a lot of money on contract manufacturers and then it doesn't work out as well. So I would say that is one key point to really take a hard look at. Beyond that, then, is kind of this moving scale of investment, right? We talked about this a little bit already. How much do you market early? How much do you market when you launch? There is a direct function between marketing and your revenues, but you do have a diminishing scale there as well. So how do you optimize that? How do you optimize the marketing dollars? However, being cognizant of the different marketing streams that exist today, right? So you're marketing a new product, whether it's a med device, pharma, prescription, it's quite different today than it was 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when we only had 3 channels on television and we were trying to deploy. Or now we have multiple channels, multiple streams. The two-way communication is much better, right? So we can hold focus groups, we can have much better interaction with our potential patients than we could 20, 30 years ago. So that's been a big boom. Things like what we're doing today. You get the word out, you get almost real-time feedback, and then from there you can adjust to your marketing.
How has pharma reacted to this idea and this new category being brought to market by you guys?
Yeah, so large pharma companies we talk to, they like it. It's a game changer. I believe everyone we've talked to would like to be a part of this at some point. Large pharma companies, large companies in general, they do not innovate necessarily very much or at all or very quickly. So some of them take a wait and see approach.
Yep.
Others have signed up for strategic partnerships. So we know that in the pharma space, it is a little bit of a longer haul. We understand that, but I mean, in general, everybody likes it. Everybody knows it will be a game changer. We have seen some of these things. Medical devices have improved, or have had some nice advancements over the last decade. So we see that continue.
Yeah. Just need to find those 2 drug manufacturers that have complementary products that are going to be competing against each other, right? And find the one that wants to leapfrog the competition.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are there any additional lessons learned? It doesn't have to be through SmartTab. It can be some of your previous companies. Are there any other lessons learned around this commercialization journey that you would want to share with our audience before we wrap up?
I think for commercialization, again, really looking at what the market is after. A lot of these products will come down to what the market will bear or what the market desires. So be very cognizant of what you're building fits into that, and also be aware of the pricing, because if you have really great products but they're priced too high or too low to where you can't achieve decent margins to really promote them, those are issues as well. So those would be the two things that I would really point out. And then the third thing is just make sure you have control. Make sure that you're not farming out too much of your activities, so you lose control.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that anything that is coming close to your competitive advantage, that you've got to keep those resources and capabilities internally, and only looking for strategic partners or alliances with those things that aren't tied to your competitive advantage. Otherwise, you're in big trouble.
Exactly right. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Well, thanks so much for joining me today, Robert. How do folks get a hold of you if they want to follow up with you after the show?
Yeah, exactly. So we have our webpage, which is smarttab.co, not .com, but .co. So smarttab.co. And we have a link there. And then we can email as well. So that would be robert.niichel@smarttab.com.
Thank you so much. It's been great having you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. I know you're busy working to bring your life-changing innovation to market, and I value your time and attention. To get the latest episodes on your mobile device automatically, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate everyone who shared the show with friends and colleagues. See you on the next episode of Health Innovators.